An ancient scroll burns at the edges, releasing thick smoke. Flames dance as the sound of distant thunder draws near. A cold wind blows, threatening to extinguish the fire, but instead it spreads embers into the darkness. There are words so old, they've almost been lost to time, but not from the mind of God. Have you ever heard of Enoch, a man unlike any other? In the book of Genesis, chapter 5, verse 24, it is written that he walked with God, and then he was no more because God took him. He vanished from the earth, no grave, no bones left to be found. But before he disappeared, he left something behind, a warning, a prophecy. And it wasn't just any prophecy. Some say he saw the apocalypse long before John ever penned his visions on the island of Patmos. Why do so few speak of this? Why has this message remained hidden for so long? Today, we're going to unseal that burning scroll. Even if the smoke stings our eyes, even if the icy wind tries to snuff out the last remaining words. Do you truly want to know if Enoch saw the end of days? Then stay with me to the end of this story. Picture the cold wind passing through these scorched pages. What he wrote was so unsettling that many chose to forget, to avoid it from the pulpit, to leave it out, so as not to disturb those who only want comforting promises. But silence is no longer an option. He spoke of the final judgment, of the Lord coming, not as a lamb, but as a judge. Long before John ever wrote of horsemen, angels, and bowls of wrath in Revelation. Today, we'll break through the silence that has covered this prophecy. We will face what many are afraid to even read, because if it's true, it means God warned us far earlier than we thought, and that he is still warning us today. Have you ever wondered who would want to hide a warning like that? Someone who'd rather keep people distracted, busy with the present moment, while the future draws near like a storm. The wind grows stronger, the flames flicker, spitting sparks into the night, but they won't erase what was written. We're going to read it together. If you want this truth to be spoken again, write it in the comments right now. Amen. Share this message that's been hidden for centuries. Help it break through the silence. Today, we will find out if Enoch truly foresaw the apocalypse before John. And if he did, why has the church remained silent? The scroll keeps burning slowly. Its embers cast light upon the shadows around it. Thunder echoes in the distance like a warning. The cold wind whispers between the letters. But before he disappeared, he left something written, something few have dared to read, something we are going to face together. The last ember on the scroll dies out in the background, as if sealing the ancient warning. But the silence isn't empty. It leads us into a field covered in mist. A figure appears, slowly emerging through the fog. Enoch, walking forward with quiet resolve, his damp cloak heavy on his shoulders. There is no audience, no altar, only the muffled sound of the wind and the cold earth beneath his feet. He walks in communion, as one who speaks with God, even in the thickest silence. It was a time when the earth was filled with violence and contempt for the Creator. But he didn't blend in. He chose a path few could see. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 5, we read that Enoch was taken up so that he would not see death, because he had this testimony that he pleased God. This wasn't a reward for empty deeds. It was the result of true intimacy, a life wholly surrendered. In the mist, he walks without hurry. He listens to the wind. He seeks God's voice in every sound, in every silence. While others gave themselves over to wickedness, Enoch cultivated obedience. He knew the world around him was beyond repair, but he still believed that his life could become an altar. This fog-covered plain reminds us of today's world, filled with confusion, haste, and distractions that pull us away from what truly matters. Enoch wasn't a hero in the eyes of his generation. He didn't make alliances to be accepted. He didn't chase prestige. He chose the solitude that walks with God over the hollow approval of crowds. And that's why he was taken from death. That's why he became a living sign. He didn't escape corruption by hiding in theories. He escaped by walking with God, one step at a time, and his life became a message to us, a silent prophecy. God is showing us that he still looks at the heart, that he still sets apart those who choose to walk with him. He wasn't taken just to amaze us. He was taken to remind us that there's another way to live. Before we continue, I want to ask something of you. Something sincere. If this ancient truth is stirring something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it so that others may awaken from this slumber. Subscribe to the channel so you can continue this journey with us. And if this message is already resonating with you, leave a like. That helps spread the call. Enoch walked through dense fog, but his steps were steady. He had a different destiny, one not written by men, but by God. He saw something in the future, not just about himself, but about all of us. Because God leaves nothing without a warning. Even in the midst of darkness, he reveals that he will judge the world and save those who choose to walk with him. The wind blows steadily, drawing the mist away. The figure of Enoch fades slowly into the white. But what exactly did he write? And why are so few willing to speak of it today? The mist slowly fades, giving way to a flickering light. Ahead, ancient scrolls rest upon a cold stone slab. A fire crackles nearby, casting a glow over the faded markings on the rough surface. Crooked, almost vanished letters tell a story that many have tried to forget. An elder holds the scroll gently. The papyrus creaks, fragile, as if protesting the revelation. But he opens it anyway. There it is, the warning, the prophecy that Enoch left behind. In the book of Jude, chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, it is written that Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied, "Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all." This is no legend. It is in the Bible. But why is it that so few speak of it? Why have so many churches allowed this warning to lie dormant, tucked away in the dusty corners of tradition? The fire beside the stone flares, casting warped shadows. They look like the ghosts of those who once read these words and chose never to speak them again. The early councils debated these texts. Some rejected them as non-canonical. Others feared the impact of such a raw, unfiltered message. It's easier to speak of easy hope than of imminent judgment. And so the scroll was rolled up and pushed into the dark. But the words remained. Even in hiding, they survived. Because God does not erase his warnings simply because men are afraid of them. Through Enoch, he spoke of the apocalypse, long before John wrote of it on Patmos. Not with trumpets or vividly colored horsemen, but with a single piercing statement: he is coming to judge. In the book of Revelation, chapter 19, verses 11 through 14, John describes the heavens opened, a white horse, and the one who judges in righteousness. Two men, separated by millennia, seeing the same vision. It's as if God wanted to repeat it, so that no one could claim ignorance. But did we listen, or have we preferred the comfortable sermons that soothe without transforming? In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 31, Jesus says that he will return in his glory with all the angels, and he will sit upon his throne to judge the nations. And us, do we pretend it isn't there? In 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, it is written that the heavens and the earth are reserved for fire, kept for the day of judgment and the destruction of ungodly men. The scroll creaks louder as it's fully opened. Its burned edges reveal the effort of those who tried to destroy the warning. But they failed. It still speaks, even now. Maybe we disregard ancient warnings because they remind us of what we wish to forget, that we are not in control. We prefer soft promises, while judgment approaches like a fire consuming everything in its path. This prophecy wasn't written to frighten us without purpose. It was meant to shake us awake. to prepare those who have ears to hear. The fire spreads beneath the scroll. Flames lick at the final words, but they seem to shine even brighter in the darkness. And in the heavy silence that follows comes the chilling sense that the most terrifying part is not what was written, but what he actually saw, something that still haunts us, even now. The silence that followed the revealing of those words felt like a weight too heavy to bear. It was the thick, oppressive silence of someone sensing that something inevitable is near. The sky was no longer a calm ceiling above, but a boiling cauldron on the edge of overflowing. Clouds piled in black, twisting layers, writhing as if trying to swallow the light whole. The air grew heavy, difficult to breathe, and then a flash tore through it all, lighting up for one brief moment the desolation below. The thunder wasn't just sound, it was a blow to the chest. The wind began to howl like a wounded beast, stirring up dust, old ashes, remnants of dry leaves burned in fires long past. Enoch didn't just write the warning, he saw it. And what he saw had nothing of comforting poetry. He saw the king descending as a judge, the earth writhing beneath the weight of pure holiness, mountains shattered, they rolled like discarded toys, the ground split open in deep gashes, swallowing entire houses without effort. Rivers turned into boiling cauldrons, spitting steam and scalding mud. Cities burned, flames devoured walls, rooftops collapsed, and once proud towers crumbled like twigs in the wind. Amid the chaos, people ran, with no idea where to go. They screamed out names, pleaded for shelter, stumbled over their own feet. They tried to hide in dark caves that offered nothing now but echoes. The sound of weeping mingled with the crackling fire and the howling wind. There were no negotiations. No time left for empty promises. There was a verdict, a decree spoken without hesitation. Enoch saw a plain filled with people, like an army assembled before a king who had no mercy for lies. Pale faces, trembling hands, eyes filled with questions for which there were no longer any answers. Here, no one could buy forgiveness. No one could hide behind status or wealth. Everything that once mattered had been left behind. And in the heart of that vision, one terrible certainty burned. It wasn't cruelty, it was justice. The consequence of lives built on lies. Today, we prefer to believe that all of this is just symbolic, that warnings are just exaggerated tales to scare children, that we're good enough to never face that day. But Enoch saw something that defied explanation. There was no way to soften it. He didn't tell it to entertain. He didn't write it so it could gather dust on forgotten shelves. He told it because someone needed to hear, because there are always a few with the courage to wake up before the fire reaches their door. And you? Can you imagine being there, watching everything fall apart, feeling the heat on your skin, hearing the sound of weeping carried on the wind as it reaches you? Warnings are not empty threats. They're invitations to change before it's too late. The fire grows, the wind howls, as if carrying ancient secrets. And in the middle of this vision, burning brighter than any flame, one question remains. Why would God give such an early warning? What is he expecting from us? The wind still blows after the vision of destruction, but now it feels gentler, as if offering a moment to reflect. It moves among the dying embers, carrying the scent of smoke far away. We remain there, standing before a closed scroll, the question still burning in our minds. Why would God give such an early warning? It wasn't to frighten without reason. It wasn't an empty threat. The closed scroll cracks faintly as it cools, as if it too wants to speak. Whoever draws near feels the warmth fading, but knows that inside the words still burn, words that could change destinies. Because God doesn't improvise. He doesn't act like one caught by surprise. He plans. From the very beginning, he knew how the story would reach the end of days. It didn't start with Enoch. He was merely one of the first to glimpse a piece of that plan. Long before the fear of judgment, there was the loving care of a warning. Isaiah saw a glorious king and spoke of a justice that would last forever. It wasn't shallow comfort. It was a promise with weight. Daniel, in his night visions, saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven, receiving authority and an everlasting kingdom. In Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, he described this moment with words that echoed across the centuries, waiting for someone who would remember. And then John, exiled on an island, wrote of seals, trumpets, bowls of wrath, and the return of the one who bears both the mark of the Lamb and the roar of the lion. None of this is disconnected. These are threads of the same fabric, a single plan, carefully woven by hands that see the end from the beginning. God spoke in different tongues to different people across distant ages, because he didn't want anyone to have an excuse. He warns because he is just. He warns because he loves. He gives time. He gives space. He gives a chance to stop before it's too late. To ask ourselves if we really want the easy path, one that demands nothing and changes nothing. But who's willing to listen? Who today will stop to open an ancient scroll, even if it stains their fingers with ash? Could you face an old warning without laughing it off or brushing it aside? Or would you do as so many did before the flood, mocking because the sky is still blue? The wind shakes the closed scroll, persistent, as if trying to open it once more. The embers around it are now just a faint glow, yet they still give off warmth, because this warning was never meant just for them. It wasn't only for those who lived before the flood or for distant exiles. It was for us, for today, for those living distracted, surrounded by easy promises that prepare us for nothing. The scroll remains closed for now, but the words are still alive, waiting for someone brave enough to face what truly matters before time runs out. Now that you've heard it, there's no way to pretend it doesn't concern you. You can't just say it sounds old or that it doesn't fit your life. Because after everything that's been revealed, one hard question remains. What will you do with it? This isn't about the past. It's about today, about how you choose to live in the face of the warning. Picture a crowd gathered in a town square, staring up at a darkening sky. Low, heavy clouds are building. The air hangs still, like it's holding its breath before the thunder. Tense faces turn upward, searching for signs, trying to make sense of what's coming. Some hold each other in silence, clutching the hands of their children, trying to offer comfort they don't feel themselves. Others lower their gaze, pretending not to see, hoping it will all just pass. That is our generation, overflowing with access, overflowing with opinions, but lacking the willingness to admit what needs to change. We have information, but we avoid wisdom. We talk endlessly but rarely listen. We prefer to ignore warnings because they make us uncomfortable. Enoch's words are not a dead story. They're a living prophecy. They don't ask for perfection, but they demand honesty. They call us to recognize what is broken inside us before it's too late. In 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 9 and 10, we're reminded that the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise. He's patient, wanting everyone to come to repentance, but that day will come suddenly like a thief when no one is expecting it. This isn't an empty threat, it's a warning for those with the courage to listen. The wind begins to blow colder now, sending a chill across the skin, a quiet reminder that we won't always have warmth or time. There's weight in the things left unsaid, in the sins left unconfessed, but there's also opportunity. That is the invitation today. Not to panic in fear, but to act with clarity. Not to run after easy promises, but to choose the harder path, the one that leads to life. Are you willing to stop, to reflect, to pray, not out of desperation, but for real transformation? Because in the end, every choice we make is laying the path toward that inevitable encounter. You can't cover your ears. Ignoring it doesn't change anything. Are you ready for that meeting? Or will you keep pretending there's nothing in the sky, nothing in the wind, nothing inside you that needs to change? Between distant lightning and the wind that cuts like a blade, one thing becomes clear. The choice is still in your hands. But there's something even more important than the fear of judgment. Something only you can decide. When we stop to reflect on all of this, destruction, fire, judgment, it might seem like all that remains is condemnation. But the truth is, there's more. Behind the warning there is a promise, a beam of light waiting to break through the heaviest clouds. Picture the heavy sky beginning to slowly open. Thick clouds pull back like drawn curtains, revealing a gentle glow that warms the damp earth. The wind, once cold and sharp, now carries subtle relief, a breeze that no longer wounds. That is the image Enoch left us without ever writing it down. He didn't just warn of judgment. He lived as someone who revealed another possibility. He wasn't chosen because he was better or more important. He was chosen because he chose to walk with God, even when no one else did. He didn't need towering temples or loyal followers. He didn't rely on eloquent speeches or political alliances. He simply chose, one step at a time, to listen for God's voice above the noise of his generation. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 5 and 6, we read that Enoch was taken away so that he would not see death because he pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. For anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. That kind of faith isn't a formality. It's not a checklist of religious tasks. It's relationship. It's trust. It's you waking up on an ordinary day and choosing, today I want to walk with him. Even if the world mocks you, even if they say it's a waste of time, even if no one else understands, the hope hidden in the prophecy isn't that we'll escape judgment through our own merit. It's that God offers us a way, an invitation, a hand extended to anyone brave enough to take it. Today, in the midst of so much noise, he still speaks, not always in thunder, but in that quiet whisper we just can't ignore. He's calling us closer, calling us to leave behind what we know is destroying us. This isn't a faith that keeps us from hardship. It's a faith that transforms who we are in the midst of it. That's a choice no one can make for you. It doesn't matter how many videos you watch, how many books you read, or how many opinions you hear. Eventually, it all comes down to one question. Do you want to walk with God? Are you willing to take steps toward him even when there's no applause? Maybe you feel small. Maybe you think you've made too many mistakes, but this invitation is for you. Today could be the first step on an entirely different path, a path that doesn't promise the absence of struggle, but promises his presence in every step. If you feel that calling right now, don't push it away. Pray. Speak to God with the most honest words you have, and if you want to leave a sign of that decision, comment Amen, because this isn't about fear, it's about hope. A hope so powerful it calls to us even after all the warnings, because in the end, everything depends on how you choose to live. The choice is here, right in front of us, waiting for a response, no longer surrounded by thunder or heavy clouds. Now the sound fades. The wind, once cold and restless, begins to still. There is a silence that seems to demand reverence, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for our decision. Enoch saw the end, but he didn't freeze in fear. He walked with God. Even knowing the weight of what was coming, he chose to live in communion. He wasn't consumed by fear. He was transformed by the hope of something greater. Because the apocalypse is not only destruction, it is the announcement of a kingdom that will never end. A place where there will be no more pain, no more injustice, no more separation, where every tear will be wiped away by God himself. In the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verses 1 through 4, this living promise is written, a new heaven and a new earth, where God will dwell with his people, and all that has wounded us will come to an end. That vision is not just for the future, it is an invitation. for now. A call to begin living as citizens of that eternal kingdom, even in the midst of chaos, to be light in the darkness, to offer forgiveness even when it hurts, to become living signs that something greater is coming. The choice isn't just between fear and courage, it's between pretending we didn't hear or choosing to change, between continuing as we are or letting God transform who we are. And you? Are you willing to live like that, to keep hope alive when everything seems lost, to reach out even when there are no guarantees, to trust that we are not alone on this journey? Today, there is still time, still a voice, still a chance. Before we end, I want you to truly consider what you've heard today. Take a deep breath. Let these words echo inside you. If this message spoke to you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you love. Someone out there needs this warning today. Click like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep walking together in this search for truth and hope. May the Lord strengthen you in your decision to shine light in the midst of so much darkness. Lord, open our eyes. Teach us to walk with you. May this hope be stronger than any fear. And may each of us find the path to your unending kingdom. May God bless you abundantly. And we'll see you in the next video, so we can continue together in pursuit of this light that never fades.